Morning. One for you. Yeah, see. We've all had a chance to review the minutes from the previous meeting. Any additions, corrections, deletions?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the minutes from the last meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Don, you did the second, who,
I did the second.
you did second and John was for John, okay. Got it.
Mike is not here.
Shelley, is Mike supposed to be down here with you?
I would assume so.
There he comes, I see him.
Oh, he's coming.
Okay.
That's unbelievable.
You hear him coming?
They see him.
Oh,
Come on up, Mike.
Mike, you're up. Morning.
Good morning. Our guys this morning. I'm here about, we're switching out printers and so on. And so, that comes out to, it's a 5-year contract. It's gonna be around 60,000 a year or a little bit more. Yeah, for them. So, wasn't budgeted for last year. I kind of mentioned that we, said, well, when we get some numbers, I can come in and ask for a figure, so.
For the last couple of years, we've just been going without a service cut or cut. We weren't leasing. right?
We had maintenance put on them for the last several years.
We owned them the last couple of years. Now we're going back into a lease.
Yeah, we have to, they have to have the firmware update.
Yeah.
They're not gonna work towards the end of this year. So,
You told me that. I just, somebody else.
Are they all on the same one? Like all of them are going out at the same time or they're,
pretty much all of them. There's a few that are not. We had to buy some that was not in the original contract, but they're still just a few, just a handful that are like that. So the bulk of the machines
are all on one cycle at one time?
Yeah. So
What brand are you buying?
they're the Minolta. They're just like those type. They're there. And then we got some desktop types as well. There's some people that don't need that level copier.
And the computer desktops, what kind you buy?
Computer desktops, or you mean desktop printers? Those are like smart printers, they're for the desktop printers.
So we need to make a motion, right?
how many of those devices or how many of the printers are we leasing, I guess, that we would be starting with? How many total?
There's around 40.
Mike, are we staying with the same vendor?
Yeah. Yeah, same thing.
It's not a huge amount, but it's a big number because every single year. So sorry for all the questions, but are we sure that we need that many?
Yeah, we kind of went around. I mean, I can only ask the department heads, basically, can't we cut down the number, And there's some security reasons that they're sticking by, and I have to take their word for it on, when printouts come out, who can see them, can't, So that's basically, I mean, we went pretty hard in saying, let's try and get the number down. Is there something that we don't have to have that you had before that now by different means of what we're working, where we're not doing as much printing as we did before? Is there things that we can now look off the screens and so on and not get that? Basically, I don't know if we even cut down even one printer from that. And I mean, we went in hard to do it, stating that the commissioners were requesting that, we try and cut it down the best we could. But
Mike, is there
I can't tell.
$45,000 in that line now?
Well, a lot of that's already for consumption and so on, so they don't have any of the lease cost in there.
No, mine, I got, for instance, I lease a plotter and it comes, ink is.
That's what we got to there.
So the ink is included?
Yeah, the toner,
Okay.
because there's no toners, that comes with it, and the maintenance comes with it and everything else, so.
Yeah, I think that's a new development.
The only thing that's consumption is the
No, you're
paper
right.
and the toner. You know, we have, the toners last a long time. And these, so when you get a printer, it's like I forget what department it was, I charged them 3 years later after we got the copiers, I charged them for a toner, you know? And they says, what's all this? Well, you know, we hadn't had this bill before. And I says, that's because it took you 3 years to use up the one toner that you had. So the toner, they last a pretty long time. That's in there. So, you know, you got one when you get it, and then, you know, just based on usage, and the usage goes down, then that toner obviously lasts a long time. And so consumption being with paper and toner and so on. And,
Can you talk them into providing the paper?
yeah, that, before I came here, that did come out of my department's funds. Believe it or not, I had to buy the paper for the departments. When I came in, I said, I'm not doing that anymore. The departments ought to be able to buy their own paper. So.
So this is I don't know why I'm not seeing the paper in here. So the request is for, how much are you looking for right now?
It was a little over 5,000. I think it was $5,400 a month. And that includes some consumption in there as well. So it's probably about 5 a month, 15. Let's see, I think we pay currently, if you want to figure it up, it's currently we're paying $1,500 a month or so. And then the rest of that, so 5,400 minus 15, so it's about 4 for the lease.
And but your additional appropriation that you're asking for is for what dollar amount?
4,000 times 12, I guess, so
48.
48.
Okay, so if I'm just walk through with me for a minute. So I think we've done about 15,000 a year in the consumption for the last 4 or 5 years. But we budgeted 45 this year, knowing that some of this was gonna come. So that extra 30, I would assume, can cover, we don't need a whole extra 40, we just need an extra like 10 probably, right?
Well, or it's maybe 20 onto that, so it's 48, 30. Be more like 20.
Because what's in there should cover your consumption, I guess, right?
Yeah, I had to pay for that, and I had to pay for some maintenance, I think, but I never saw the maintenance coming out of my budget. That we had to pay for before. So it kind of depends on where we want to pay for some of this stuff. The first 5 years, I did have to pay for everything, you know, and then after that, when we were doing the maintenance, I didn't see where that was coming from. It was getting paid for, but I never saw it coming out of my budget. Unless someone was paying it out of my budget and I didn't know it.
Is that the maintenance contracts budget line item? Is that what that
No.
is?
No,
No.
that's not where that's coming from. So.
You
Maintenance contracts are for services that we have with different vendors that are being that up. So, you know, there's certain things that are being paid for that I don't know where they're coming out of. And cell phones and certain things like that. You know, I have to run the accounts, but then I'm not seeing where they're being paid from. And so it's hard for me to budget when I'm not really making payments on stuff, on certain
I don't
things
see the
that I'm
additional.
coming up and talking to you guys about it, and seeing where it's being paid from.
You gotta determine where you wanna spend it from. You have to take additional expense.
I see. Okay.
I was just telling Corey that we don't have an additional for that today, but they can't determine to fund it and where they want to fund it from. and then we could do the additional in April.
I see. I mean, it makes sense for it to come out of copy machine and usage. My thought would be that we put an extra 30,000 in there, knowing that some of this was coming, so that should cover a vast chunk of what's happening here. So if we need additional, it would just be for the beyond 30, what we actually need. And then my other question, I guess, would be between you and the commissioners, I guess. Are we really, really positive that we need 40 some printers? I mean, paper usage is really going down. I know there is still a need for it, but that's a lot of printers for 200 people. That's like one every 4 or 5 people, isn't it? I'm not saying it's not, but are we, I don't know if you guys have been involved in that conversation or not, but what's your opinion on that?
Well, I think, well, it was a couple of years ago, Mike, you went around to every office.
No, I just went around to every office a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to bring it down, guys, here's what it's gonna do. You guys are gonna have to walk around with me and talk to the department heads.
Yeah, I don't envy you because no one's gonna say, sure, take my, I mean, I get that. No one's gonna volunteer. to
Yeah,
do it,
I mean,
but-
that's what it's gonna take. I mean, if you want to enforce some of the stuff. For instance, before I came on, no one looked at consumption.
Mhm.
And I went around and I talked to everyone about it because I thought it was excessive at the time. And I went around and I talked to them all about it, and there was just an uproar among the department heads, you know, about why do we have to do this and why do we have to pay for consumption? Because I says you can budget for your own consumption. And, you know, you can do a swag at it. Here's what we normally, you know, I says, I'll work with you to get you an idea of what you're printing each month. And you're the people who are in there in your department, you can see what's printing. I can't be there. Well, then that was rejected. I was told that I was being, you know, by the council at the time, that I was taking us back 10 years, that this is just ridiculous, that we got to do this. And I couldn't see why that was ridiculous. So basically I told Perry, I says, I want a invoice for every department and I'll monitor. Do you know how long it takes me to do that in the course of a month? But I let them know that I was monitoring their printing consumption. Well, then the printing dropped 1 million copies or more in a year.
Not surprised.
But it takes me a long time to do that. I gotta, you know, do the claims, the invoicing. I gotta look at all that stuff. And it takes a huge part of my day, just like on everything else that I gotta do. Even with the towns and the cities and everything, anything that they ask for, I gotta go out and I gotta get quotes. I gotta bring it in and I gotta make sure that what came in is what we bought, even for the towns and the cities. Then I gotta configure it, I gotta deliver it, and then I gotta see that it works, and now I gotta pay the bills every month.
Yeah.
And basically, there's just 3 of us in my department. So I'm just telling you the way it is.
Yeah, so if I'm correct me, I'm trying to follow all this. What I think you're saying is we probably could go to less printers, but people would have to share, and then that messes up your ability to watch the consumption. Is that what you're, am I missing that?
No, that's not my reason. I mean, I can only go there so much and just say, you know, this is what the commissioners want us to do. But I don't have a commissioner standing beside me when I'm going around doing this stuff to make and argue the point.
Yeah.
If we want to say that, we want to put some teeth in it, you know, and if you guys say, well, we don't want to do that, we want to go with less printers, then you pick someone from the council and you come with me. We'll go right around with them. We'll get a commissioner and a council member and you guys can go along with me. Because I've done it now several times. And they always come back, no, this is what we gotta have.
Yeah. So I guess that's why I'm asking your guys' appetite, commissioners, on this. I mean, it seems excessive to me, 40 of them, it does, but I get no one's gonna do it nicely. I mean, nobody wants to have their printer taken away.
Well, I'd be happy to go around with Mike too, because I don't know, I've kind of been of the opinion, I don't wanna micromanage the department head, because they know how to run their department. But by some token too, not every employee has to have a printer on their desk.
Well, they don't have, it's not every printer, it can't be, because, you know, that
You're like
we
1 to 5
got,
right now.
yeah, you know. And what we said was we wanted to go with larger printers that were more capable, like the copiers, and put like one or so in the office, and then you walk over and you get it printed. But then they say, well, there's a security issue that goes along with that, where we have people that are coming in to specific offices. And I asked them, I says, are you sure that, you know, all of you can't see the same information on your screen? Like, you know, whether that person was sitting there, you could go over there and bring up someone's credentials and see what's going on there. Oh, no, we can't see that. And well, I'd have to sit there and watch them work the whole day to verify what they're saying, you know. But I'm gonna tell you this, the time is coming with the updated Microsoft software. That's called DLP, data loss protection. And they'll have that on their offerings where I can come up, they've already clicked it in right now. Where I can come up and I can see when personal information is coming out to people's screen and who's seeing it. All we gotta do is switch it on. And that's a part of CJIS, is data loss protection. And so if there's people that have the ability to see stuff that they maybe shouldn't be seeing, you know, then all that can be taken care of. But there's a point, and how do you argue that whole thing, Corey? When I'm sitting there and it's like one department head, and I don't have time to sit there and watch them work all day, and each position.
No, I get it. I understand. It's a tough spot. Nobody wants to give up their printer. I get that. And that's puts you in a difficult position because you don't have the authority to tell them no. I get that.
And
So,
then
but
the
I
other
do,
part is that we're on a timeline schedule with this whole thing. We're gonna be without firmware coming up, and
yeah,
and the stuff isn't gonna run after a while.
I'd say if, you know, this was a $40,000 request for 1 year, it wouldn't be that big a deal, but we're saying we're committing to 5, I think you said 5 years. So
Yeah, so if
I just think it's worth asking the question, and I understand that it might not have to come from you. It might have to come from someone over there,
Yeah,
but
it's
that's,
almost getting to the point where it's about, because once you gotta get those in, and everything has to be put into place, and all the installations has to take place. And it takes a while. And then on top of everything else, we're doing all domain changes and all new hardware and stuff like that. My department is just overwhelmed right now with work. And so to delay this off and say, now the time crunch is coming down here to the bitter end where we need it to go, I made the effort, Corey. I made the effort at the start of the
okay,
year.
Mike, I hear you.
Tyler
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying for 5 years, I just want that question answered. And I get it. I hear you, that it shouldn't come from you, that it might need to come from the commissioners. I hear that. But I still think the question needs answered. You're not asking for an additional today. You're asking from where. I agree, copy machine usage is a good place. We put 30,000 in there, knowing this was coming. Do we really need more than that? That's all I'm asking.
Well, I mean, we gotta get the stuff on order though, and I know what you're saying. But you guys only meet once a month. You understand that, right? So by the time we gotta go around, and let's say that we can't come to a consensus, and now we burned a month and then maybe 2 months. If you guys met every week, it would be different.
Why are we in such a rush? I mean, it's not, I understand the firmware
Because
goes
the
out, but
firmware, we can't update it, and the stuff isn't gonna be able to run before long.
it's not gonna go to print, or you're
Right.
just.
We're gonna be out of certificates.
So when did the firmware expire? You think an extra month is gonna make it stop?
Well, we can't order until then, right?
I just
And
think the
it
question
takes a
needs to be
while to
asked,
get
and
it.
I just don't buy that an extra month is gonna be a problem. I don't think this is an unreasonable request. Before we commit to 5 years, are we sure we need this many printers? I don't think it's that big of a deal.
Well, okay, then if we have time, if we have problems and so on, and people can't print, I'll just send them to you to answer the questions. Right?
Mike, you're not even asking for an additional today. There's
Well-
nothing in front of us to vote on.
I thought that's what I was doing, was asking for an additional today.
There's no additional submitted. Tony
That has
just
to be
told us
advertised.
you didn't submit one. You're asking, right now, the only thing in front of us is which line item, and I'm saying copy machine and usage. That makes sense.
Well, I brought in the quotes for all the people at the commissioners, and then we scheduled for this to come in so that we could do this today.
Like I said, if you approve the funding, then that's already, you've already approved the funding. We've just got to figure out how much and where to do the additional that next month. But he would know that you have approved the funding.
Because I brought it in with them, with the commissioners. I had all the quotes and everything in place. I gave them to Tony. Those guys signed them off, and then we had to come in and we had to do.
Everybody has,
I mean, I don't have an additional appropriation request in front of us, so I don't know
No.
what,
I gave all of them was, they had asked for large expenses coming up. And I gave them yours that had this listed for 70,000.
Yeah, and that was a swag that was last year because I didn't know exactly what it was.
so
We
add-
had a form that was there last year where we said, list all the things that we had to put into there. I listed 3 things, I think. And then when I brought them up at budget time, we don't want to hear these now. Okay, so why did I have to fill it out?
well, Mike, that's not true. You asked for 70. We went from 15 to 65 last year. So there's an extra 16 to 65. We added an extra $50,000 in here for this, so we didn't ignore that. There is an extra 50 already there. I'm saying, are we really sure we need that whole 50? If you need it, it's a budget, it's approved, you can use it. You don't have to ask for anything, it's already there. Do you really need more than that? That's all I'm asking.
It's like I said, I don't know where some of the stuff was paid for in the past on some stuff. Dealing with that. Where, because sometimes I think things are just, when it comes down to it, things are being paid out of some places that I didn't know about.
You talking out of 1138, things like that?
Even out of my own budget, 1,000. Things are, like I brought up with the cell phone stuff. I don't even have, how's that stuff even being paid for? I don't know, because I'm not even making claims out for it.
So I don't know that we even need them. Do we need a motion right now? I mean, the most, if there, what would it be?
I don't think if there's any.
Because
I'd
the
like
budget's
to get
there.
them on. I'd like to make sure that we got the order going so that, we can't just keep drawing this out because of when this is gonna take place.
Well, you've got a-
We have many deadlines this year that are being imposed by me, by the vendors themselves, and printers being one of them, but many other ones. And so there's gonna come a time that certain things aren't gonna run. And so.
So I'm
if we
saying you've
don't
got
have the
money in
things
there.
done into there.
You don't need to wait. You've got money. If it's gonna take more than that, then we need an additional to decide.
That's fair enough. I can do that. And I know that, this wasn't there, but, at the start of the year, Microsoft is putting some real, I'm just telling you that they're coming in with some specific stuff that their stuff isn't gonna run by about September this year if we don't have the right computer hardware in place as well. And so anything that's old at all with certain motherboards, with certain chips on them, their software will not even begin to install. And we have to get to that level, that software by September.
Well, the minimum you think you'd need is 20,000?
It appears that way, once we take off the consumption.
Historically, it was just call it 15,000. Then you asked for 65,000. And it looks like we approved 45, so that the 20,000 is a difference from what you requested. We reduced it by 20,000, and that was 9 months ago. So I don't remember the reason, but so the difference you would
I
need to
think
make
it's-
up.
Yeah, I think it's because we own the printer, printers at that point. The only thing we had to do was pay the maintenance. And we were hoping maybe we could get the number down a little bit.
'Cause also, I'm just thinking for an additional for this year, you really only need, you don't need the whole year. Right? So if it's an extra 4,000 a month, I think is what you said, is that right? For this year, you just need basically April through December, which is what, 8 months, 9 months?
Yeah.
So the question is, do you have enough in your budget to get through the end of the year? My guess is probably.
Problem. Yeah, since we're not buying it at the start of the year. And they're gonna come in and really the payments don't hit until they actually get the product installed and it's up and running.
And then this could be put into the budget
Mhm.
this year for next year.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, sounds like we're good on that one, right?
Now, you probably could, I know your frustration with the number of printers, but there's really, maybe anybody has to do with the courts and maybe the auditor and treasurer really
Well,
needs
you
secure.
got assessors that have some things where they claim that they're dealing with people that come in, they have to be set in private room, they go over the stuff with them, and then they need a printout, so they want a printer right there. I says, are you serious that you can't walk over? Well, yeah, we can walk over, but then someone else in the office can see that, and that's privileged information
Mhm.
that's there.
Some select
You mean you
select
can't see-
scenarios, and
Yeah,
departments
you
that have
you
that.
mean you can't, the other people can't see that same thing on the screen as well? No, oh no, they can't see that. Okay, after a while, you run out of arguments, you know, I'm sitting there, I have to be there all day long with them every day,
Mhm.
running their jobs to see how that, so it's just me against them. At that point, I tried my best to try and push it through. I'm gonna tell you that they're gonna do the same arguments, but if one of you guys come along, you guys control the money and you guys can control the scenario better than me. And, you know, I'm just going one department head against another at that point.
Yep.
And
I get that. That puts you in an unfair position. I get that.
yeah, and so, you know, I did my best. You know, even Tyler Sprunger was with me and we just kept at them. And they said, no, we can't operate that way because of security reasons and things like that. So there you are. I mean, if you really want to get it enforced and say this is how we're gonna do it, it'd have to be someone who's coming in like Trump and Elon Musk and saying, but you're not getting it, you know, at that point. I've done my best. I tried to bring it out in front of you and say, here's what it was, you know, so. They have their reasons for that, you know, and they think they're pretty important reasons. There's where we're at, you know, and if we're not going to go at it with that type of mentality that we're just gonna cut it out, probably nothing's gonna happen if you guys walk around. If you guys aren't gonna be the ones that say, no, this is excessive for these amount of printers in this office. We'll let you have, you know, if they have 4, we'll let you have 2 instead of 4. And that's what you're gonna get. So you decide what you're gonna get with the 2. That's what you guys would have to do. If you're not gonna do it, then we're wasting our time.
Good, so you,
I guess I just, obviously that path is really our responsibility.
Mhm.
that's
It's
why,
not your responsibility to go around and do that.
Yeah.
Your responsibility to tell us how much money we can have. It's our responsibility to figure out how to spend it. So I think just to move this along, I would recommend that we go forward with whatever's in the budget. Let us build some accountability back into where those printers are. We'll have the department heads look at that, ask them one more time, tell us if you can eliminate a printer. I'm not exactly sure what path we'll take, but by the time you all reconvene again next month, we'll know whether we need to cut or not, and we'll bring that to you.
Sounds
Is that
great.
fair?
That's perfect. Thanks, Steve.
And Shelley, I guess you can come up now because you're,
Doing my appropriation right now.
well, we have you, clerk's approval of funds to purchase desktop computers.
So I reached out to Mike with regard to our desktop computers in the clerk's office. I noticed a couple of them that they're not working as well. And I would say they're probably, what, 7, 8 years old?
Well, they came in with Odyssey.
Actually, and it
Odyssey
didn't-
paid for the first round. Anyone who was gonna be on Odyssey, the state provided all the computers at that point. And then they said, after this first run, we were responsible for it. So they're gonna get replaced anyway this year. I was gonna replace them, you know. Shelley didn't want to get them replaced last year because of the election. She didn't want to have something else that was taking place. So basically we said, you know, after we get done with the election, then we're gonna add into there. So basically anymore, let you guys know where money's being spent. Certain departments, the department head's gonna have to come in so that they can say, here's what we define as the need, and they're gonna bring it up in front of you. And then I wish that they would have the money appropriated at that point, and then they could make the payment on the bill, because it's too confusing for you guys to know what I'm paying for, when I'm paying for everything for everybody in my budget. And I'm trying to say that all these things are taking place, and it's not just for Adams County government, but I have to do the same thing with people that are on our network that are not part of Adams County government. It's the same thing there, that I have to pay them. We got a problem on this part, but I know we're kind of getting away, but I want you guys to understand some stuff. Do you understand that I have to run a side system that's not part of our system in order to make invoices out to these cities and towns? Do you understand that? That's not legit. We cannot do invoicing off of our current system, at least what I'm told. So I can't, when I have to buy stuff for the cities and towns, I can't go to Lao and invoice them. I have to do it on a side system. This is not kosher. I'm just telling you this, and I've been saying it ever since I've been here. And it seems like it's falling on deaf ears.
I'm not following
I
exactly what you're
can't do
saying.
an invoice. I
Can't
can't do an
invoice out loud.
invoice that's coming out from our system to invoice the city and the towns. If they come up and they ask me, they come in and they say, all of a sudden, we gotta buy these computers. Well, I don't know ahead of time, you know, maybe something's happened. They come in, they have to buy something, or something needs to be updated, and they find out about it, they got it approved. They say, we gotta buy these now and we need them. Well, I gotta pay for them out of my budget, but then I have to invoice them out of a separate system, and then they write a check. And it comes back into general fund, but it's not coming back into my line item
Right.
that I have there.
You can't
That's it.
send as an option, can you send them the list of items that need purchased?
I do.
And
I sent
mean, just so
them
you're
in,
not
they
buying
write the
them.
check back, but
Well, so you're not expending any dollars at all.
I gotta pay for the stuff from the vendor.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I
Give
have-
them the list. Let them pay for it instead of you paying for it and then them paying.
But
and the
they,
whole
the
hassle.
people come from they work on a contract with our Adams County government to buy systems and so on.
Yeah.
They're not gonna understand that. See, when they send the invoice and it comes in, you know, and they get payment, well, who's this? Who's the city of Bern? We don't have a contract with the city. We got a contract with these people. This is who are saying, why are we getting a check from these people now at this point? And so it comes in confusion. I tried to do that stuff, John.
What's your solution? I know what you're saying. I don't know the intricate
We need to
details.
change our system, and I'm just saying that, I'm just saying that not to be trying to come up with a solution today. But we have to have something different with this stuff if we're gonna have all these cities and towns, and because that's why my budget has to be so inflated. Is I never know what's gonna come up from all these people, and I gotta pay for it out of my budget, and I'm just being blindsided a lot of times. And then when I make the payment, it doesn't even come back into the line item that I paid it for. It just comes into general. You know, and somewhere down the road, you guys question me about it, and I say, I need, you know, I had to pay for all these things from these people, and so I had to write them out a check for the stuff that we do for licensing and so on, and it comes back into general, but I never see it come back.
So I think we need to get together with, I don't know, maybe the auditor and commissioner or something like that, and.
But we have a problem with the budgeting, and even with the people that we cannot, for some reason, Geneva and Decatur, they can each budget for their own departments. And they have an IT line item, but we cannot do that in Adams County government. And for me, it's frustrating. And so I'm saying, because I'm the one that gets raked over the coals all the time when I come up with budgeting stuff. Well, why is your budget so much different than everyone else's? Why, when we go to other counties, why is it so much different than what they're doing? Well, what I'm finding out is that other counties aren't paying for everything in their IT stuff. You know, things are, you know, the sheriff pays for everything for his department, and I mean everything. You know, he pays for a lot. Dan pays for a lot. I'm not saying that he's not generous in his money and so on, but there's other people that, you know, they came in and they have their own network, their own people. They're not part of our network, and they do it all. Their IT budget, and they have the people that.
I know we're an anomaly in the state for how we manipulate and manage our IT.
I'm just
But we have to leave it up to you to find the solution, and frankly, the cities,
I think we've
Monroe
gotta work
and
together on some of
Decatur.
that stuff on how we're gonna do it, because I can't run the money and the budgets and everything and tell you guys, this is how it's gonna be done, without you guys being part of the solution. And the commissioner's part of the solution, and Fred's kind of stepped up and he's saying, hey, I'm willing to come in and trying to work with us again, you know, on some of this stuff. But even in our own Adams County government, we cannot have an IT line item. And I've been at this stuff since 1983. And I've never seen that, where a department doesn't have an IT line item, budget line item, where they come in and they could work with me. And we can come in, this is what we anticipate the needs are for the following year. And then they could come in and we could talk about it, and it could be put into their budget. And since it's coming from our accounting system in Adams County government, then they could make out the claim and they could make the payment. And that would help me out. So it's just one less thing that I have to do on my side. Right now, these are all things that I have to handle completely from start to finish. And then on top of it, I get complained about on how big my budget is, because none of that stuff has been separated out. And so I told Shelley, I says, you want these 10, even though, you know, to come down, you know, we haven't done it much before, but I'm going to require that they come in so that you guys can have an idea of the needs that are coming up this year. You know,
So I
things.
think
And when people want some things, you know, they're gonna have to say, we need that, and I'm asking for that money to be appropriated into a line item within their budget so that now they can make that claim out and so on.
I thought we steered towards a path that we were directing all purchases, all computers, a couple of years ago, to be maintained and purchased by you, so we could inventory and keep a a list of everything.
They still have to do that. I have to go out and get them, but can we please just let the thing be a part of their budget and let them make the
So-
payment?
We're not gonna be able to figure that out today. So, I mean, we talked about having all the computers on the schedule, which if they're 7 years old or more, they're overdue.
Well,
to be
yeah,
replaced.
and I'm bringing it up now
So-
because we have a problem communicating between me and everybody.
Yeah.
You know, with this whole thing, and when I get a chance, when I'm coming in, I'm gonna say, here's where the problems are gonna be, because someone else is gonna have this problem at the end of next year, when I retire. And I would lots rather that we try and fight these battles with me being here, rather than someone else getting snowballed that has to come in, and we haven't solved the problem. So now that I come in and you invited me to come down into this meeting, Shelley comes in, and this is part of the problem. They're gonna have to come in, they're gonna have to say what it is that they want. And what I wanna do is, at least if we don't do it today, even with Shelley, but there's a difference between who purchases the equipment and who pays for them. I'll have to purchase this stuff, and I'll have to get it so that it's gonna work on our network and so on. But I want the department head to be able to write the claim for it at the end. So when it comes in, I just pass the invoice over to them, and they write the claim for it, and they do that stuff. And the money's already been appropriated and so on. We have all those details taken care of. And this is the new way that I want us to begin. And I don't care what you do in your budget and where you put it, but just so the department head knows where it's at. I get the invoice, I hand it over to them. That's been the misconception this entire time in the 8 years that I've been here, is department heads can't buy the stuff. You're right, they can't buy it, but they can sure pay for it. And they can come up in front of you and they can let you know what it is that they want to buy, so that there's complete passage of the whole thing. And then you guys have a handle on that, so you know what my department's budget needs are in concerns with what we have to handle through all of it. You know, because there's also a misconception when they see my department and the funding that I get, they think that that's just what my department needs. I mentioned a while back that once you take out salaries and so on, the only thing that we need is $25,000 a year, and that includes if I was buying new computers for my staff the entire year. And we don't do that. We only get them like once every 3 or so years. So it's, my department needs for my department is pretty slim. But anything on the IT department stuff is all inclusive for the entire county, and it includes Decatur, Geneva, and so on. So we got to get our heads wrapped around that and decide how we're going to do some of this stuff. Because I'm sitting over here running side systems that's not, I don't feel good about it. State Board of Accounts doesn't come to me and ask me, where's your little side system at and what you're doing over here for accounting purposes? Okay, I'm just bringing it up. I'm just bringing it up so that you know we got a problem and how we're going to work with it. You know, now that I got you. Because I tell different people, but I don't think we get into the detail of my concerns as much as when I'm invited to the meetings and I bring them out in the open.
Yeah, there's a larger conversation than.
Yeah, absolutely. But now see, I got it in your head. And I got everyone that sits in here now today, it's in your head. Because I've been telling individuals about it and my concerns. And I've been here for 8 years. And we're not getting anywhere with it. It just gets, the can gets kicked down the road.
So how many computers do you need?
So there's 10 in the office that we'll need to replace, but we also have 2 outside in the hallway. They're public terminals that also probably most likely need replaced because it is older as well. So about 12 computers will be need to replace.
What are those each cost? per
Well,
setup?
I just, he forwarded that to me yesterday, so that's why it wasn't needed to. So it looks like with a warranty, so that would probably also be another thing that would be included in pricing with these computers. Would probably be 1,400 per computer.
So about 17,000.
Yes. Now I
So we-
do under the, oh, sorry.
We needed, so right now,
Sorry,
it's
what was that amount?
about 17,000, 16,800.
17. Now the clerk does have a clerk equipment line item. I don't know if that would be the best use to put the appropriate funds to that line item.
This is out of the clerk's perp fund, is that what that is?
No, actually, this is the regular clerk general.
Oh, I see. Yeah, you got 1,600 there. That's on right.
Yes.
Yeah, Shelley. On these purchasing, what, like 17,000? Is that counting the scanners too?
No, I've already got the scanners.
Okay.
Yeah, they came out of the clerk fund.
You know, on
Because
this,
that could actually, because it is documented.
you know, on this bill you're talking about, like, you know, the clerk's perpetuation, even the 4D fund used 10%.
I thought of that too, can also be added with that too, but you know how that goes, John, or Jim, it's like you have to do the percentage, it's only a small amount that you can actually do the 4D money.
Yeah, like, you know, Maximus, you know, they're
Yeah,
still
I
our
know,
vendor.
yes, I know.
You
Yes.
know, and how you submit how
Yes,
many
I do.
hours
I do,
everybody
Jim.
works and.
Yep.
And, you always told me, you know,
So what's the,
don't go over 10%.
Right.
You know, for equipment supplies.
so you guys are talking a language I'm not following.
Oh,
Is there money over there?
So what he was suggesting is, we get federal funding money from child support,
40, yeah, I know that.
4D money.
Okay.
And it's a very limited amount that you can actually, it's a per month calculation about how many, child support for 4D is calculated. So the vendor can actually give me the percentage of how much you can use from that fund. It's a small, I have used that, yes, I have, but it's very minimal and you have to do the calculations from that. So I would have to do I would have to submit it, see what the calculations would be, deduct that from what we could actually put in clerk.
So we talked about a few years ago about getting all of the computers on a schedule.
Thing I wanted to.
Yeah, and they should, it's what's expected life, it's 5 years.
5 years.
So can you go 6 on that stuff or not? Not that we need to, I guess, hammer that out right now, but 5 or 6 years maybe?
We could, it just depends on their software and how the software runs on it, you know,
Gotcha.
and as long as it runs okay. And we can get the operating systems updated and.
Main reason I asked that is because replacing all of those at the same time, I'd be more a fan of replacing half 1 year and half that next year, so the whole office doesn't get hit with the new computer. But this year, I think we're gonna have to do them all, right?
They're all
So-
starting to struggle.
Well,
Big time.
Microsoft put it in, and I can just doggone tell you that they're gonna need to be, because we're
Right.
gonna have specific, it's gotta be newer hardware.
We said this year, there's a big change with Microsoft, so they,
September,
yeah,
by September, we have to have, everyone's gonna have to be on an updated operating system, and that means that every computer, we're gonna have to rebuild every computer.
Right.
By September of this year. No matter what they got on it, and our licensing covers it, it's just a labor part at that point.
I'm just thinking of in the future, barring a situation like this, because you and I talked about that, I know there's a big update with Microsoft and it affects everything. So we need to make a motion for out of a particular fund, is that what our account? Is
Yeah,
that what we're talking-
we don't have an additional that we advertise for this, so you would have to approve the funding like we talked about a while ago.
So
And
is that
direct
even,
where it's paid from, and then she can seek the additional for next month.
is that
And
even,
there's only 1,600 in that clerk
Yeah.
equipment fund. I assume just
just go, Yeah,
approve the whole thing and
yeah.
that'll give some wiggle room if, you know, you get a hiccup or something.
So we just,
You
is that
wanna-
even a motion or
Let's have a
not?
motion without the amount.
It is, okay.
Do you wanna say to try from the 40 and that, whatever the other fund was, perk or whatever, and see if any of those, whatever they can pay first, then come from general after that?
What else does that 4D money get used for?
Like anything from the clerks conferences, there's a certain amount that they'll, present us a percentage that we can use to cover like hotel lunches and stuff like that. Also, anything in the office that is used for 4D. So like, we were talking about these printers. There's one printer we probably can actually use a 4D percentage on to pay for. Because we have a child support deputy that mainly uses it for 4D.
So if you had to guess, what would that number be? that you would fund?
Offhand,
I mean,
I
if
think I
it's,
just had a calculation. I think it was really low. It's like 13%. I'd have to look at it though. don't quote me on it because I have.
so roughly that could pay
It
$2,000
varies per month.
or something, you think, or?
I would
I'm
have
just trying to
I would have to
figure-
deduct the percentage, so I would have to, how much it is percentage wise, take that from there, subtract that, and then take. So I would probably, just to have it be safe, so the CSB auditing, and I know Jim has been through that before, they're very critical, and even not just 4D funds. So when they do an audit, it is very difficult, and you have to make sure that you've proven correctly that you have the percentages correct. So I just want to make sure I go through my vendor, say, hey, look, this is what we are proposing to purchase. What would be our percentage to use? And could you provide me actually a dollar amount instead of me calculating or having my mathematical error, that he could give that to me and then I could present that. Would you like that in a email when I prepare my appropriation and show that, or just say this is what's going to be covered? And
I would say today we can probably approve the funds, and if you get some from there, that's fine, but it's
Yeah.
gonna come from somewhere, right?
Cause right now,
Big
right now,
right
we're just, since there's no additional in front of us, we're just saying, try and use X, Y, and Z fund, right? And then next
Yeah, to
time,
approve the funding up to whatever the amount is for 12 desktop computers out of the clerk equipment fund.
And what I'll do, Tony, too, we'll show that. So when, for the next meeting, you guys will actually see what was deducted from the actual cost that we have to appropriate from general.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
I'm good.
So I'll make a motion to approve funding, however we determine that at next month's meeting, for 12 new computers for the clerk's office.
Thank you.
We gotta go.
Who had a second?
John.
You definitely
I think so.
think. Is it please leave?
No, I guess I'm,
Have a motion and a second
just
to
not sure
approve the
whether we
funds
should vote on
as
that, but I
requested.
just-
Those in favor?
it's not advertised, but I don't have a problem with it.
Well,
but
we need to approve the additional work.
Yeah. That's fine.
Neither of those were additions.
Right.
But Fred, did you want to not put an amount in there, just say funding?
I think you should, I'm
Or
a,
do you want to put the amount of
For
17,000?
approximately, put 17,000.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. Make sure I had it in here correctly. Okay.
And my door's always open anytime anyone wants to come up and talk. Okay? Anytime.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
Okay, Brad?
What's our relationship with the city?
Let's,
Jim, that's a
that's another conversation after this meeting.
like $100.
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Right, that's the problem. Right.
Well, yeah, so I'm not trying to be, we did have our additional papers in.
You
correct?
do have your
Okay.
addition.
Sorry, I'm not trying to make fun. I just want to make sure that. Okay. So first off, good morning, everyone, and I'd like to give you, at the bottom of the page I handed out, you'll see that is what we're after today. The rest is just a heads up, what's going on, and what we will be in. So a little background on today's, the two new tandem axle chassis. So I don't know how many of you heard, there's a lot of new requirements coming in 27 for the DEF, for the diesel. And we have been hearing this for the last couple of years, and we've been nibbling away at this, trying to get trucks before we would, our schedule, we'd actually.
What's the new, I haven't heard about it. Is it something drastic?
Yeah, they're reducing the regulations on the diesel exhaust and they're lowering them to, you're gonna have hardly any soot coming out. So what they're doing is right now there's a DEF system on trucks or equipment. They basically are gonna have to double that DEF system to get the exhaust emissions down to where the government is wanting them. So what that means is there's been a scramble now for about 2 years, people trying to get these trucks ordered before these new regulations come in place in 27. And it's doubling the amount of exhaust emissions. They also are requiring these companies to warranty these exhaust systems, even though the ones that are out there now, we struggle with now, and they're gonna double these. And so obviously, what does that do to the price? They're gonna go way up in 27. So for the last couple of years, you can get on the list to get trucks, and now that we're getting close to 27, I got an article in a magazine that just said, and we knew this before, I'm just stating out of a magazine, that if you don't get in line now to get trucks, you're not gonna get a truck. And for at least a couple of years until they get this figured out. And then the other thing is too, when they do start putting this stuff out, you know how much trouble they had with them when this system started now. So we're trying to get ahead of the ball game. If we can get these truck chassis ordered now, we're well ahead of the game, and then we can wait until this all plays out. They can come around 27 with all the new emissions and what they're gonna do, and we don't have to worry about it.
So it's gonna be a deal where you order it this year, but not get it this year?
Yeah, we'll still get it this year.
Oh, you
Yeah,
want-
these chassis we can still get. Luckily, commissioners already gave us initial approval to get these bid out, because if we didn't get them bid out, we weren't gonna get in line.
You're just saying, you think if we get close, like if we get into next year and you go to buy it next year, it won't be here in time for 27. That's what you're saying? But if
Correct.
you buy it this year, it still will.
Yes, we'll still get it before that all starts to
Before
happen.
they get way up.
I gotcha.
So that's why on the bottom there,
Yeah, we're just asking for appropriation to 1169 for 300,000 for the two chassis.
and we have there again, we have the money. We just need to get it appropriated.
Mhm. And then, so what you have up at the top there, that's you showing the cash balance?
Okay, the top is, we did that to show you that in LRS, we have that money, but the items that are listed there are already coming.
Okay.
That's stuff we've had on the way, and then the balance is what's left there right now.
And this 300 is coming from local road and street, or this is coming from, which one is it coming out of?
That'll be coming out of the MVH.
I see, okay.
So anyhow, right now, if, that there's what
Yeah.
we're asking for.
Out of MVH.
It's pretty,
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
MVH
MVH.
would go on the line.
1169.
Was that considered a transfer or is that full appropriation?
If that amount is not in there now, it's gotta be the additional.
We did not budget for that.
Gotcha.
They've got the money, it just needs to be
Right,
appropriated.
yeah, understand.
But you said 1169 though? That's local road and street, right? Is it local road and street or MVH? Sorry.
Tony, what is 1169?
That's 11, local road.
I think it's, yeah, road and streets.
Now, so you do have the cash available for that then? 'Cause
Yes,
I think-
we have the cash available. It's just not, I'm sorry.
We
it's
have
not
it in the
that line.
checkbook.
Okay.
It's in the checkbook. It's not in that line. I'm sorry.
I got you.
Yes. It needs to be put in 1169.
That's my big question. Okay, so you had, how much did we actually budget for the trucks and equipment in 1169? I know they,
450,000.
that's what they requested. Is that actually what we approved?
Yeah.
Okay. And it looks like most years it was like 60, 100, 25, 175. So do you think this 300 will fit inside of that 450 or there's actually?
No.
No, that's why we
No,
got that listed
yeah.
up there, the 356, 900 is what's in there now, what's in the red, the three items underneath there, which will take us down to 62, 125.
356 is what's budgeted, is that what you're saying? Instead of
450 was
actual cash?
budgeted, but right
356
now,
is what's
that's the
left.
balance of what's
I see.
left. That We've already
Out of the
spent some this
450.
year. Yes, correct.
Yeah. Cause we had stuff ordered last year that came in this year, that's came out of this year's budget.
I got you, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so you
This
got,
is just
you
what
got
left is out there
62
hanging.
left of your budget.
Yeah, once this is all out of there, that's 62 is what we'll have left in that.
Of the budget, okay,
Yes.
but cash
Yes, of the
wise,
budget.
then cash wise, what are we cash wise? Like actual dollars in the bank, we have enough for this, you're saying?
Oh, yeah, plenty.
There's
Okay.
over $2 million in there.
Was it
Okay.
2 in that one? Yeah.
I have to ask,
No, I know, yeah,
because we've done that before.
I know. Yeah.
Okay, that makes
The
sense.
reason- You're just not buying a truck every year is why you use
Yeah.
way less.
Correct.
Yeah, I got you.
And we're trying, that's right now, we're trying to get ahead of this and
Gotcha.
And one other question, we've got it, so I'm assuming this regulation is coming from feds, this is not a state regulation, I assume, okay?
This is the EPA.
If they change with the new administration, and they get rid of this, then what? Like, did we buy something we didn't need, or is it at that
No,
point?
we're still replacing trucks that need to be replaced.
Yeah.
We're just doing it earlier than what this was planned for 26, 27, 28. Try to buy a truck every year. This way we're kind of doubling up to get ahead of that 27, 28 to where we can let it rest for a couple of years without buying any trucks until they figure out the emissions stuff.
Gotcha.
and if they do away with the regulations, awesome.
I know,
But they won't get any less than what we already have on them now.
right?
Cause we talked about that too. They could, but if they don't,
Yeah.
I got you.
I'll make a motion this is a additional, right? So
Mhm.
I'll make a motion for the $300,000 additional to 1169 at NVH.
I'll second. You good on that, Tony? Yep. Okay. So then the other stuff that we've listed there, this is just stuff we want to give you a heads up. That's
Did we
coming
vote
up.
on that though?
Yep.
We all voted?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't let it,
Motion and a second to approve. All those in favor?
Sorry. So the other things there are things we wanted to give you a heads up on that we would like to come in and ask for additionals on. And one thing, so I can't remember if I told you guys this, on the MVH restricted there, it says distributor. I don't remember, I thought I might have told you guys, maybe I didn't, that we learned this year that if that is strictly used on the road, it can come out of the restricted side. And so that's why we thought, well, our distributor, we had nothing but troubles last year. And the commissioners gave us approval to go after it because they knew all the troubles we'd had. We basically had to cut 40 miles out of our chip seal last year because the machine kept breaking down. And it's on a 92 chassis, the body's been replaced twice.
So the distributor, you're talking about the equipment.
Yes, correct. So that one there will be coming back in as a heads up. And then, you all know 700 South, I've been pretty excited about that. We're actually going with that this year. So therefore, we didn't want to ever put it in the budget because, we talked about that. If we put it in the budget, it doesn't go and it doesn't go and it doesn't go. Guess what? It's going. They want to start by the end of March. So that's just a heads up again, that we'll be coming back in to ask for that. And yes, the funds are in there. We've been saving those.
Mhm.
I've explained to you all, we've been saving money for a lot of years to do these big projects.
And the distributor and 700 South would all come out of MVH restricted.
Correct.
Which there's over $6 million in there right now,
Yeah.
so.
And so therefore, we have a large fund in there, but that's where this is coming from.
Gotcha.
Well, thanks for your due diligence and keeping ahead of the game.
Yep. So then the other two items on there, something we'll be back in also to ask for, kind of, as you know, we've worked with you guys on budgets a couple times now. We try and keep the budget down and it's time to start doing some of this stuff. So we're gonna start using some of our funds.
Yeah.
So,
Sounds
Thank
good.
you.
Appreciate it.
Yep, thank you. Have a good day. Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
This will be fairly quick.
My item is just an additional appropriation regarding the contractual services that's specific to the HSIP net safety grant that we received. We've got our contract in place.
Is that the bridge?
That's the bridge guardrail
Guardrail,
sections.
guardrail.
Yep. So that's that $2.6 million in grant funds. This is tied specifically to the preliminary engineering phase of that. Because the preliminary engineering, it's a reimbursable grant, so we've got to pay the money out, then we receive our portion back from the state. I have to appropriate 100% of that money, even though net we're only going to be paying 10% based on that grant structure. So what my request is to appropriate an additional $200,000 for this year into the contractual services. That way I can run those invoices through, and that is the maximum amount that they're anticipating out of that contract. The total contract amount for that was, on here for this part of this year, $412,644. And in the request and the explanation, I have the breakdown based on their rough estimate as far as their expenses for 25, 26, and 27. Because the announcement didn't happen until November 27th of last year, there was no way to put it in the budget. So now that I've got this, my plan is to make sure that I show that in the budget requests that come to you in August, September, so that we can appropriate for it. But that's why I'm here for the additional on this one right now. And then next month, I'll have to come back to you for the appropriation of community crossings grant money from Bridge 155, because we got that announcement on November 7th of last year, and now we got our contract announced. So thankfully, I'm asking to appropriate grant funds, not appropriate additional internal funds. So that's kind of a fun part of this request. So any questions regarding the request?
I don't know if it said, I don't think it says anything to do with that, but I saw an email where it looks like you got more grant money.
Yes,
For
we got even more. So Community Crossings 2025-01, that's the first request for this year. They did the announcement a little bit earlier this year, and Adams County was awarded the maximum amount we're eligible for of $1.5 million. And that'll go towards Bridge 180 and the asphalt overlay on County Road 300 North from 27 to the West County line. So about 7 miles of county roads will get funded. So the actual breakdown as far as grant funds for the specific projects, I'm a little sketchy on. I thought I knew what it was, but now I'm not so sure how that breakdown is going to be. So I won't say how much goes to each one, but the total award was the $1.5 million. So
The
thank you.
maximum.
So we got the max.
Yeah,
So
well done.
So that's pretty good. So in the last year and a half, between Brad and I, we've gotten just over $7.1 million in grant funds. So that's fantastic news for us. I don't know if we can always keep that sort of pace up. I'm happy for it. I got 2 more grant requests out there. The problem we're going to run into, and we'll have to have discussions about that, is at a certain point, we only have so much local funds for matches because we're tying them up in projects. Is how do you want to fund future projects? How fast do you want to go? Obviously, you're the money board. So how fast do you want to spend money on projects and money you can bring in? Because that success requires local commitment. So I want to know, certainly it's going to be important is what do you want to appropriate towards future grants, the next cycle and beyond. I know we're confident where we're at with the projects we have, but when we start talking about 2030, 2035 and beyond, there's certainly going to have to be an amount of money that you have set aside for those. So
Without outpacing ourselves.
yeah, I mean, we can get those grants, but we have to have the 20 or 25% set aside for those.
Well, there was talk mid last year about the community crossings grant going away. Have you heard much?
There will be changes to it, but that's part of the state legislation right now as far as the road funding. So there's a couple different things that they're talking about doing to it. I thought maybe it might go away, but it doesn't look like that's anything that's in the legislation right now. There's certainly going to be major changes to the cities and what pool they're kind of moving them to a different pocket as far as how their funding is, and they're actually funding an increase. But that means the Indianapolis and Fort Wayne could go for as much as the $4.5 million, but that means they need to have $4.5 million as match for that. So it increases the size of projects that the bigger cities can get. It doesn't look like they're going to change that for counties our size. They might actually lower the match that we need. But for towns like cities like Decatur and Bluffton and others, those are gonna have some significant changes to community crossings as it's being proposed right now. So I'm confident we can continue to max out that community crossings based on between both the MBH and Hume Bridge. Those funds are fairly healthy for those types of projects. But as it goes for larger federal aid or those special safety calls like we just were awarded, we're talking about right now, those, we're gonna have to make sure that we've got funds set aside that when those opportunities arise, that we have the opportunity to do it. Because we have a great idea, but if there's no money to go after it, then my hands are tied and I can't necessarily, I wouldn't recommend to you to pursue those. So, and you don't know what opportunities you miss when they're not there. So right now we're very healthy. I'm happy for that. I'm excited for the grants that we're bringing in. $7 million is fantastic for a county our size. I think a lot of counties would be jealous for that. Certainly I want to make sure that we stay in that healthy position so that we have all those opportunities when they're there. So, but.
Okay, so we need a motion for 200,000.
Yep, that's the request is the contractual services.
I make a motion for 200,000 additional for bridge, the bridge work that's been.
I'll second.
John, second. You have a motion to approve the additional appropriation. All those in favor?
Aye.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
I'll be
Good
back
job.
next month. We'll have to go for 155 on that one. So there's your notes. Thank you.
Thanks.
Colvin?
Morning, I am here on behalf of Red Gold. In 2023, you all approved the tax abatement for them on the warehouse that they constructed just south of Geneva. And every year they have to come back, give an update on that and have that approved for an additional year. This approval would be for the second year of that abatement. So it was approved in 23. The first year would have been last year. Their benefit, this will be the second year. Just again, to go over that project, they maintained the number of employees they had in the SB1, the initial document. They had 260 employees at the time. They said they were going to keep 260. This was just a warehouse, so it wasn't really adding a lot of employment, but it was a $13.5 million investment in the community. And so with that, they have to come back every year. I'm here on their behalf to ask you to approve their abatement for the second year of that 10-year term that was provided.
And this is, yes, the abatement is already approved for 10 years.
You approved it for 10 years in 2023, but they're required to come back every single year just to give an update and get your blessing to receive that benefit. If they were to not hold up their end of the bargain, you can revoke that. And you can do it on a year by year basis. So you could revoke year 2 and year 3 and then reinstate it in year 4. It doesn't reset anything. You just, for that 10-year period, you can pick and choose. But if they're holding it up, then you need to approve that every single year. But it's already been approved. This is just reaffirming that they can receive that benefit.
It looks like they're meeting all of their
Yes.
salaries, employees, all that's.
They've held up their end of the bargain upon the documentation.
Okay, I'll move that we've
Second.
approved this year.
Lenny, second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Passes.
Thank you.
I think we need to start looking at our abatements more. I think in the true intent to bring business and bring new development,
So the county has
and now
two
we're approving them,
currently.
everybody wants to buy a piece of equipment or build a building and get a tax.
It
abatement on
really
it.
can be used as both, for communities our size. We're not always gonna get an attraction project that's tens of millions of dollars every single year. This come few and far between just because of our size and location. So we have used them more, I think, for those expansions, making sure that businesses stay here. But there's certainly validity to looking at that. I will add to, at the state level, what the new governor is gonna do with property tax relief and business property tax, all that is still playing out. So that would really impact, if those are reduced, this wouldn't even be a conversation because there'd be no business property tax. So that's still being played out, but I do think for the county, you've currently got Red Gold and then you've got Decatur Diamond that came from abatement. You have those two.
They were debating whether to stay here or go to Ohio.
But it's certainly something that we could look at if you'd like to. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I'll get it.
Okay. Tony?
Before I get into what's on the agenda, do you guys want to go ahead and just do the transfers and amended salary ordinances that you should have received via email?
I'll move that we approve all transfer requests.
Second.
Orient. Bob raised his hand and Fred said it out loud, so what do we do?
Pick one.
Okay,
Red Road.
then we just need to vote on.
Well, that we're doing those ones.
Transfers.
Transfer.
So we need to vote on the transfers first.
Okay, have a motion to approve transfers. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, any questions on the amended salary ordinance? These will be quicker than the additionals.
I'll move to approve the amended salary ordinance.
Okay,
Moved and seconded to approve the additional. All those in favor?
if you need copies of those later, I'll get it before you leave.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay, well, we're gonna have additionals as well. But I also, there were a couple of other things that need discussion. One of those is I emailed you all. Let's start with the council's budget. The travel had been lessened from 1,000 down to 500 for this year. And it's actually over 300 in the hole.
Why is that?
It was used for 2 conferences, for rooms,
We've never used it
meals,
before.
mileage. So it's possible to do a transfer, but it would have to come from legal fees. If you all want to do that and tell us how much you want to transfer from legal fees,
So we're 300 in the hole, you're saying?
we're a little over about $305.11.
I realize we're only in January. Is anybody planning on going to any more conferences this year? So we know in advance.
And I don't know what's coming up or when.
The annual conference?
Anybody else planning on going anywhere?
And I don't know how much those rooms or registration or any of that stuff would be for any of those conferences necessarily right off the top of my head. But we could look it up and think about it, and you can give me direction as to whether or not you want to do an additional or if you want to try to transfer. If we transfer from legal fees a certain amount, and by the end of the year, if we are low in legal fees, we would then have to do an additional into legal fees.
Let's do the additional at the end of the year.
Yeah, transfer for now and then.
Yeah, just.
So transfer from legal fees, what amount would you want
So
to
if you're going to
transfer?
these conferences, is there any information to bring back from them, or, I mean,
I get all my handouts and stuff.
Why don't you do an even 500, make sure everything's covered, and that'll make.
If we do 500, that'll leave a couple of hundred in there, and if anybody goes to another conference, that'll be shot in one time, just with room.
that's fine. Your motion,
So transfer how much?
500 sounds good to me.
Transfer 500 from, let's do a motion on that just to make it,
Yes.
because I'll have to fill out the transfer for you guys. From legal to travel. and even 500. Who wants to make the motion? Bob? Second?
Second.
You need to vote on.
Have a motion to approve the request as presented. All those in favor?
Aye. Let's make it funny. Okay. That one's out of the way. Okay, and the commissioners are out here too, that can kind of help if there are questions on the insurance. Not talking health insurance, we're talking the county property and casualty insurance. We will be in the red on that as well. Last year in 24, we had to do an additional at the end of October of 2,196.11 because we went over the 500. There was 500,000 again budgeted this year. And we have, out of that is not just the property casualty, you have cybersecurity, you have drone coverage, you have various smaller coverages outside of the big scope of the umbrella coverage. Bixler is now our broker, so they get their pay for doing that. And I think that is around 14,000 something. Cincinnati Life covers, I believe it's the buildings themselves and some other things. They divide it up between Cincinnati, and it was Liberty Mutual, but we did not, the commissioners did not approve Liberty Mutual to continue because the price went up. What was it, Steve, 20%?
It was a big increase.
Like 20% or something. So Bixler worked to get Bliss McKnight in here, and they gave a presentation. The Cincinnati portion of the coverage is $106,140. That's already been paid. We have smaller coverages that have already been paid, as I had mentioned to you. The Bliss McKnight portion is going to be this year a total of $421,646. But that is covering, I think it was 354,000 approximately, but there was a prior acts coverage that was another higher amount. So the total was 421,646. And actually Bliss McKnight already came through on this prior acts like pretty quickly after they took the stuff over. Dan knows about that because it was coverage for insurance to cover a vehicle that was totaled. And they've already got the check to us for that. So at any rate, because of all those things, we are going to be in the red on that insurance line, and we'll have to look at some kind of additional or transfer. Now, another additional that I have on here, I'm hoping that it's higher than what we're going to need, and it's on the transportation garage, because if there's money left in that, we can transfer that left over in the transportation garage. We could transfer into insurance to help cover some of that. But if you remember the, and that, if you all have that in front of you, the $200,000 amount out of infrastructure there, you had directed us in December to pay for the transportation garage out of special donation until we ran out of money in that, and then to do it out of county general. But we have to find a line in county general to do it from. And that line was in the commissioner's budget under infrastructure, which only had $25,000 in it. So we are requesting the additional of $200,000 because the original building was going to cost almost $189,000. It's actually going to be more than that because of some weather things. Is Mark in here? Mark was going to come down and discuss them. Anyway, there were no contingencies put into place. And there were some extra costs due to weather, freezing weather, causing extra work or something. Stan, do you know what any of that was? by any
No,
chance?
I don't know what the overcharge was.
I wish Mark was down here. He said he was coming up. But I don't know how high those will be. Hopefully they won't be real high. But I know he said something about footers and this and that and the other. And
The only thing I know is when they poured the slab, it got so cold right after that, they had to blanket the slab, and that's an additional.
And I think that's part of it. And there was something else. I think there was a little extra cost for whatever Luganville Excavating did. But I can't remember what Mark said. There's just going to be.
I know what it was. They came across an extra footer that was not.
Yeah, so there's, it could be more than the original amount, which is why we're looking at the 200,000. And as I said, anything that would be left over in that, we can then transfer back to the insurance line. But we're going to have to see how much short we're going to be in the insurance line, and then probably seek an additional, if we don't have left over here, to transfer for an amount into the insurance. But I wanted to answer any questions you have on the insurance part that I just discussed, or the transportation garage. So if you have any questions on that, I'll do the best I can.
So I talked to Mark a little bit about some of this stuff. I don't know for sure what all the overage stuff was, but one thing I will say is I don't think we're doing a very good job on our projects of knowing what all the costs are up front, and because they're all running over. So going forward, before we ever set something in motion and appropriate any money and say okay to anything, we need to have a much better idea of what a total project is gonna cost. Because this has happened a bunch. I mean, so just again, going forward, we need to make sure we ask the right questions, we get the right people involved, and we start having a much better idea of what these, because just like, you know, if you're pouring concrete in the wintertime, there's a chance you might have to blanket it. I mean, that should not be an additional, that should have been in the cost. I mean, that's, so, and whatever else they were, but I know there were some permitting things as well, that weren't looked at, so. Again, going forward, we need to do a lot better job of that.
Dan, Doug?
I just mentioned that, Mark Quinn kind of served as a project manager for that project. It's really not in his job description. That saved the county a lot of money right there.
Yeah, if we had hired a project manager, we probably have paid an additional $25,000.
Well, here's the
Plus the.
Here's the contractor and the project manager.
What's that?
He was the whole show. He's the contractor and the project. He ran the whole
other thing
project.
He went through the architect's plans and suggested some changes in the actual construction costs that saved us money. So, you know, he was a huge advantage for us on that project. So, you know, granted, there was a little bit of overage and I've built enough to know that, you know, you've always got a contingency in there that you have to allow for. You know, that being said, I think our additional contingency was relatively small compared to the amount of money that Mark saved us.
I think you're right. Mark did save us money by doing that. That was stuff above and beyond his general job and everything. But had he not done that, again, we need to have a better idea. I mean, of what these projects end up costing, so.
I have a couple other ones on here, that we can go over. The ARPA stuff's pretty easy, because as you know, it does not carry over. This is something you have to reappropriate every year. So we took the outstanding amounts that were left in the projects, and those are listed on here. As a matter of fact, that's the bigger amount of the additionals, but it has to be reappropriated again so that they can keep spending on those projects out of the ARPA. The one other thing that I had under commissioners is utilities. And I really don't know how at budget time, if you look in the budget, under commissioners utilities, we had $25,000 that was requested, but then when the budget was done, it was zero. So there's no money budgeted in there. However, Glenda went through previous years of utility at Golden Meadows. Rick has already turned the gas off out there. So we figured that with the average of what they had spent on electric and stuff prior, that 5,000 should probably cover that, but we need to appropriate that 5,000 into utilities to cover the Golden Meadows electric out there in the meantime. So I guess it's kind of a good thing because it's less than the 25 that would have been budgeted. Now it's only 5, but we have to appropriate it to be in there. So those are all the additionals that I had. So
it's the garage.
garage,
Meadows,
utilities, and ARPA.
And ARPA.
Cause you guys already did the highway and bridge. So there is one more. There is one more and it stands. PSAP for Bill and Don.
An additional?
Yeah, we have to move it into PSAP.
Oh.
From E911 because council directed that. That's why we got, it's partly why we got PSAP.
That's just reappropriation.
So that's another one that we,
Well, we can, I mean, the ARPA and the PSAP, we could, those are easy, so I'll move, we approve those two. Let's knock them out of the way.
Second.
Corey and Fred. Okay,
Have a motion and a second to approve the additionals. All those in favor?
Aye.
that leaves the garage and the utilities.
Basically with the utilities, we zeroed it out because we figured Golden Meadows was gone, but there's still some residual utilities on there.
Yeah, I think we kind of planned on that. That's the discussion. Stan, we have.
Was that dumpster ever looked at out there?
Remember I mentioned there's a
Waste management dumpster sitting in the back.
We have to pay for that.
I did not look at it.
It's on suspension right now, John. Suspended it
Oh, okay.
in January. I did have a little bit of overage on that, and then I got another bill from March of last year that I had to pay this month. It was just a missed invoice. So I mean, there is some residual expenses, but that's on a 6-month suspension until July. And then I was kind of waiting to see how things went with that, with sheriff and everything. So assuming that we don't need it by July, I'll have it. But there's gonna be a cost to that, right? I mean.
Yeah, there always
so
is.
There always is.
So with the garage, I mean, we have to pay for it, so I don't think we have a choice on that. And with
And
the-
it was gonna be out of county general and that's,
with the utilities, with Gold Meadows, I mean, obviously we're coming out of winter, but we'll be going into next winter at some point. Will that get winterized? So we don't have to pay different bills and so we don't have water lines freezing and.
I would assume that would be a Rick question, but I assume
I
that it
I
would.
think it was winterized as far as water and turning the gas off, but, you know, apparently he decided to keep the electric.
But I'm guessing during budget time, We can discuss with Rick.
A little heater down.
we can discuss that at budget time on what to put in for next year and utilities for that.
All right, I'll make a motion then to go ahead and approve the utilities for Gold Meadows and the building as well.
Second.
Motion to approve. All those in favor? Opposed?
You wanna sign before they go around, you wanna sign after? Just don't let me forget. There's 3 different things here. They're all paper clips, so all the other pages are just what it is. Do you need a pen?
Got one in my bag, if it's not one.
There you go.
Hey, Tony, was there a formal vote taken on the travel transfer of the $500? I didn't hear
What?
a formal vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
There was a formal vote taken?
Yes, yes.
Okay, I didn't hear. it.
From legal to travel.
$500, okay, good. I just wanted to hear that.
That'll actually be a transfer that'll probably come here for their approval next month.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in a short period of time. Any other things they brought before us?
I figure how much. Rent and insurance and bring it.
I have
back.
one quick question. Does anybody, what is, shoot, wrong. What is county incentives? Account 8895. And what can that be used for?
Under an expense.
I would have,
It's a
I can
fund.
look and see what was spent out of that before.
There's over 300,000.
88.95.
8895. There's over $300,000 in
Stan,
there.
you call up Lau, look up 88.95 and see what was. Because I think that's different than county promotions. Shannon, have we used anything out of county incentives? I know county promotion we have, but
I have not, I'm trying to get into it right now, sorry, I don't have it open.
I think Stan's trying
I've got
to.
it open, yeah. We've
I don't
got,
know. I don't remember.
out of $5,000, we've got $4,800.
No, that's,
No.
so county promotions is what I use for like little different stuff throughout the year, I usually.
I'm not talking about that.
I can't even find it.
It's not on
Right
the budget.
here.
It's on-
Federal
It's
fund.
it's on the fund chart.
Oh,
Yeah, it's not on the budget anywhere.
We get it. I'm just curious. I mean, it's a few years ago, when I first came on here, I found one we hadn't used in forever. There's a lot of money in there and we used it. So I just want to know what it is.
I'll find that I'll get that answer to you and. Once I find that answer, I'll email all of you on what that is.
And how it's funded.
Yep.
I mean, what, wasn't much, but over $1,200 went into
so
it.
if it's not on the budget, it was probably a one-time,
Could have been a one-time
No,
thing from the
it's not
state.
that.
It could,
if it's not being, I'm just saying, if it's not being budgeted, then there's no more money going into it, I would assume.
No, money went into it.
Oh,
The
really?
budget's not tied, that was my whole thing a couple years ago, is the budget's not tied to income at all. It's like totally separated.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, there's some type of restriction on it, but we need to know what it is, but I'd like to know where the money comes
yeah,
from.
I'll look it up.
You know, I think it must be something that comes in and out because it shows a beginning balance of $309,610. And an ending balance of $310. Year-to-date receipts are $310,868, so it looks like a fund that, kind of takes care of itself. I don't know if that's funded through a tax budget. But it looks like it's not in.
Any other questions? Bill and Marie?
I don't have anything.
I just want to, I guess, before we go, real quick. Last month, we made a transfer of the public defender's salary, part of his, to one of his deputies. And this next budget session, I think we need to really look at his salary, the public defenders, because he's on a schedule based on the prosecutors. And then we backed it down a percentage, so he can only essentially take on so many cases legally. And, you know, he's reducing his salary personally to help subsidize his deputies. So I think it all revolves around the pay structure. But, you know, we have an obligation for our public defender to maintain a caseload, and it's being only restricted by the restrictions we put on his pay. And it's all tied into, you know, the state's salary ordinance. So we're supposed to pay him a percentage of if it's a full case, he was supposed to get the entire prosecutor's salary. But it's all been stepped down and kind of I guess, reduced, and I'm not sure the reason why, but, you know, now we're not even honoring the state's requirement on pay for the public defender, because now he's underpaid by what.
He's supposed to get what
He's
the
supposed to.
prosecutor gets. According to the state, the Commission on Court Appointed Attorneys. But he has never taken that amount. He has always kind of divvied it out to his men. Doug, can you speak to that a little bit? You're on the board.
I'm on the board. We discussed this, Brad. We discussed this as a board and I think the board kind of recommended to Brad if he wants to pursue this, that it's basically in his court. We, as a board, we encouraged him to pursue it, but I don't think Brad's interested in pursuing that. I might be wrong, but the board basically talked about this job.
Mhm.
We encouraged him to, hey, look, if you think you need to be brought up to where the statute says, then pursue it, but I don't know if he has.
Yeah, and I'm not pointing any fingers by any means. I talked to him after our last meeting, you know, when he redirected that $3,000 to pay for one of his deputies. I'm just concerned that if we're not on the level with how the state determines our pay and how it.
Well, if it's helpful,
prorated.
just a little more context, so when we say this, my understanding, so Julie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but, because I haven't read it, but my understanding is the state has a scale for prosecutors and judges. So that is preset, and then the state pays the elected prosecutor and the judge. Then the deputies, the county pays for. So then the public defender council, so that's the people that represent them, have said, we think that they should be paid the same. But I don't believe that's state statute. I believe that is them and their own lobby. That's their group, right? That's their association. They say, we want to be equal with prosecutors. From a public policy perspective, we're not lawmakers here, but or at least not for the state. If I was a lawmaker, I would say, hey, I do think the prosecutor and the public defender should be more on level footing, but I think this, if they really think that's true, then the state needs to do for the public defenders what they do for the prosecutors, which is pay that top person and make it elected. I think the public defender should be elected. And I think the state should pay them. That's what they do for prosecutors, that's what they do for judges. So that's the dilemma, where, so you got, there isn't really like the state statute saying they should do it. I don't think.
It's been lobbied for extensively by the Public Defender Board. Okay, that's something that they have been trying to get codified for a long, long time. The biggest arguments against it, as Corey says, the difference between a prosecuting attorney and the chief public defender is, number one, a prosecuting attorney has to be elected. Public defender does not have to go through the election and campaign process. And two, the public defender doesn't get 100% of the criminal cases that come through the county. They only get the indigent portion. That doesn't account for the disparity in their respective cases. So that's the reason why it keeps coming up against resistance to be codified. It's a request, it is not a mandate.
And then the other thing to remember on the reimbursement program, 40% of that money comes back to the county. 40% of his pay in the reimbursement program comes back.
Yeah, and by all means, like I told you, that I'm not pointing fingers, says he actively doesn't pursue it. You know, there was a time a couple of years ago, the pay got, I don't know, dramatically increased, and he voluntarily said, no, I don't want to take all of this, which he could have. And he said, no, I'll go on I think a 3-year period. And he didn't want to hit the county with a large increase in his pay. I mean,
I think
very noble what he's doing.
It just creates a limit on the types and number of cases that he can personally take.
Right.
Pay
Yeah,
is tied in
prorated.
directly to the type and number of cases. So the caseload is a reflection of, I mean, the salary is a reflection of the caseload. So an increase in salary would mandate then an increase or a change in the caseload and the allocation in his office. So it may have been a quality of time management decision on his part. It may not be that he felt, I'm not entitled to it and I don't deserve it. It's simply a matter of, based upon the resources and staff he had, he didn't feel as if he could assume the extra responsibility and thereby be able to take the extra money.
Right. Well, when I talked to him, he mentioned that, the deputies only got a 3% raise, a standard raise, and when he essentially donated his salary to one of his deputies, it was because he was taking on more felonies. The deputies are generally the misdemeanors, but this deputy was taking on more felonies, and he felt that he needed compensated, and we didn't give it to him. I'm just saying, I think we need to open the door. So, the whole thing went from last budget period with pay, and I mean, I just want to make sure we're compensating the people to keep them here.
Yeah. And that's something else can be discussed as we get into budget time.
Yeah. And I was just throwing out, an info,
Yeah.
Because
Keeping the back. of your head.
generally, I agree. Prosecutors and public defenders need to be a little bit more on par, but I think the state needs to step up and do it. And I also think I don't want to be the one county that goes and fixes it, right? Where no one else does. So already we're paying our public defenders, the deputies, a lot more than the other counties around us. So if we should be here and we're like here and everybody else is down here, I don't think that's the area I want to lead on, right? So you got to kind of keep it in context with what else is happening. What is everybody else doing? The whole conversation needs to move, but I don't necessarily, if we're already ahead, I don't necessarily want to go further ahead till everyone else kind of comes along as well. But I mean, it's a big conversation, so there's a lot to it.
But I can tell you,
Just
the commission has,
FYI.
the commission has lobbied for the state to follow the Constitution and pay for public defenders, just like they are the prosecutors. I know we talked about that in the Public Defender Board also, so they're lobbying for that. Now, when that might happen, who knows? But they're lobbying for, they will be paid by the state just like judges. But, got an email from Shelley. She's helping us out on this incentive fund. It's a 4D incentive fund for 4D child support. So it's federally funded for 4D for the prosecutor's office. And I would assume that's money that comes in periodically as regards child support.
Yeah, I get those reports periodically for incentive. I cannot, well, it says clerk and then it says prosecutor and then it's for 40. And it shows what goes.
What can it be spent on?
Very restricted.
Very
funds
restricted.
That has to deal with the 4D office.
Yeah.
It can't be used for anything. It has to have a connection with 4D workings of child support. That can be used for their staff, their office stuff, but only 4D stuff. It's very specific.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I look back through real quick here on one of our budget, clear back to where I started in 23. Money has only ever come into that, nothing has ever been spent out of it.
Yeah, I was kind of looked at that too, so I think we need to find places to use it instead of just letting it sit there. So you deal with the 4D stuff, right? So would you be able to use some of it in the prosecutor's office?
That's probably.
The incentive is a different, and Jim can actually collaborate with that one, because that's a very difficult one to try to tap into, because it is a federal funded money. It's pretty much, we get it, but it's kind of hard to use, basically.
But, well, that's what I'm getting at is we need to find a place to use it if otherwise it's just accumulating for nothing.
But that one is actually 4D.
So no, all child support is not 4D.
I understand that. I'm just saying there's money accumulating that we're not using. So let's try to use it.
And like Maximus is our vendor we use. And they help us on how to spend it, where we don't break any rules or anything. And we pay Maximus every month for the service. And I think it's still the same guy, isn't it? That's our agent. So we'd be able to help us on how much we can use for those computers to talk about.
Something that I don't know if it was that particular one that used 4D money.
Hey, John.
Public defenders also have a private practice too.
I'm sorry.
Do they have a private practice also, public defenders?
The deputies do, for sure they do.
Deputies do.
We
It's
could
more
talk
than
to
half their
Jeremy,
practice, yeah.
see if Jeremy has any ideas for it.
But Brad's probably full-time then.
He's like 95% full time, the other two are half.
But they can have a private practice as well.
Yeah.
Public defender, even the prosecutor.
There was a hiccup at last month's meeting, requesting that we get, for our October 8th meeting, we're supposed to have an executive session in between this meeting, was not advertised, so we can't have it. So next month, April 8th, in between, if same type of thing, if we can get that scheduled so we can have that, so I can discuss that, security upgrade at the jail.
Wanted it today.
Executive session, yeah.
We'll make sure
We need a
Tony
code.
hears
Yeah.
that.
Oh, yeah.
He's talking about
Code.
this.
Yeah.
Okay.
The attorney has to send something to them with what I see code to follow so they can advertise it properly, so. Not a big deal, It's not, I'm gonna resend, for a new quote, cause that one's gonna be expired. And they will make that change to drop that one paragraph that we talked about.
Julie Marie's making it out to send us the code.
But they were okay with
Yeah,
that?
I talked to them and they
We'll
said we can
advertise
drop
that
that,
when we
so.
advertise the
I've asked for a new quote this morning when I knew this meeting was gonna happen, and I should have a new quote with the new language in it for the next month's meeting.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thanks. And you got all that, Tony, for?
Yeah, we've reached that point in time where if there's no additional business to transact, I call for Stan.
Is this a good time?
Yes.
We're just having.
I think you've all got the letter from Mark Burry about, discussing financing for the court project. So I guess I'd ask to get on your agenda for next month to have an open discussion during the meeting. So that's, and if anybody's got any questions, I'd be happy to talk about it now. I know we're kind of running over, but if we could, get on the agenda for the public part of your meeting. I guess the one thing that,
That was my clerk email.
I guess the one thing that I would ask is at some point, I would like a specific direction from the council for us, to move forward with this project. As far as if you're willing to move forward with this project with the information that we'll present and how we would move forward with this project with the information we're gonna present. So I guess, I don't know that I would ask for any specific action necessarily next month, but I guess I would ask for some type of direction, whether it's by consensus or whatever, if you're willing to continue this project, so.
You guys are okay with that? I emailed Angie to put him on next month's agenda. Is that okay?
But take a look at the information that Mark sent out. He's been working very, very hard with Baker Tilly and with the small group sessions we've had. Last one with John and Lenny and I and Mark. And so I appreciate those discussions and appreciate the work that he's done. So feel free to call me if you've got any questions on the letters that he sent out. So.
Hey, Stan, you wanna bring them up to date on the courthouse?
Yeah, what we've done, when the, project was updated by Elevatus, number one, they updated the estimates on the project as it was presented. They also updated us on what it would cost to do the project out at the jail. And so in reference to that, the commissioners have had a discussion. We want to just really do a good structural appraisal of the courthouse itself. And so we're currently in the process of getting an estimate on what it would cost to have structural evaluation, HVAC evaluation, just because as this is going to be a long-term project, we want to make sure that our courthouse is ready, willing, and able to sustain as part of that project long-term. So
We do have some foundation issues there, don't we?
Well, that's what we're gonna have a professional structural engineer come in. So we're currently waiting on an estimate of what it would cost to do that before we contract somebody to come in. Cause, you know, we wanna make sure that all parts of this puzzle are sound and good to go, so. But yeah, like I said, if you got any questions on what we're discussing or any questions on what Mark presented, I'd sure be happy to talk to you with it. So anyway, if you're good with that, I will look forward to presenting next week and having that discussion.
Thank you.
Sir. Thank you.
No additional businesses to be transacted at this time, or call for motion to adjourn.
Sorry.
Was that Fred?
And Bob.
Aye.
You're all. Hey, guys,
All approved.
I'm
going to.
Mr. Jet lag.
Hey, John, you guys actually.